I'm here with Mike Long. Mike, thanks for joining us. Mike is Money Mike, as I refer to him as, but you're an over $1 million a month affiliate partner.
Yeah, last month.
Plus, and you run OMG, you basically do lots of stuff related to money getting. That's what we call it online.
I do lots of
money getting. So today we are going to be talking about entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur. So we like to talk about sort of things that you would have taught your 18-year-old self. So
okay, great. So in terms of entrepreneurship, one of the cores of it is there's basically two things going on with entrepreneurship. There's what you all right, so any business is basically traffic, conversion, and product. You have to have all three of those aspects. You have to have traffic, which is eyeballs on the offer or interest in the offer. You have to convert some number of those visitors or prospects into customers, and then you got to sell something. So those three things you have to have. Now, there's and this is from David Mills, who invented and founded OMG. Then there's two aspects to each of those things. Okay. There's an infrastructure aspect to it, which has to do with organizing it and so forth. So, for example, the infrastructure of traffic, if you're running YouTube pay-per-click ads,
sure,
is some amount of interface with the YouTube search engines.
Yep.
You might get some keyword tools that help you look around and identify hot keywords and so forth. And then you might run those ads, and in running those ads, you need to, there's a bit of traffic aspect to it, but there's a bit of conversion aspect where you have to get some of those people to join and so forth. And at that point, when people maybe sign up for your list, maybe you want them on an autoresponder, right. Something like I use Aweber. You can use something different, this GetResponse. This allows you to gather up emails and blast them all out
right.
very quickly. Yesterday I was in between engagements, and I mailed 15,000 of my closest friends really quick with one thing, and
okay.
another 1,000 of my closest friends with another thing, in the span of a few minutes, and that that is something that allows you to. So that's an infrastructure thing, but then there's a relationship side of things.
Sure.
And that holds true for each of these things. So with traffic, there's both a infrastructure side of traffic, and then there's a relationship side of traffic. With conversion, there's both, again, infrastructure and relationship. And then with product, yes. Again, there's still an infrastructure aspect to it, and then there's a relationship aspect to it. Now, what I want to talk about is, since we're talking about entrepreneurship, kind of like the first most important thing I would want myself to know, or at least first very important thing I would want myself to know if I were to teach my 18-year-old self, is about partnership. And partnership, of course, has to do with the relationship aspects of things. Now, what I started by saying is that there's kind of two things going on. There's what we can do in business,
yep,
and then there's what we can't.
Okay.
And it's really important to kind of organize things that way. Like if we really look at it, here we are on Earth. We have a limited amount of focus and awareness.
Yep.
And it's not zero, but it's just not infinite. And what a lot of entrepreneurs will kind of get is like a feeling of I can do nothing or I can do everything.
Right.
So I'm either Superman or I'm Superman with a bunch of kryptonite making me completely weak. And neither of them are perfectly correct. What is correct is that you can do in many cases quite a bit.
Yes.
But then at the end of the days, you're going to wind up with limitations to what you can do. And then people think of you either employees or partners. At that point, it's basically what you're left with.
Right.
And when we think of employees, just for a brief second, I'm going to count, one-time outsourcers or ongoing outsourcers, VAs.
Sure.
Let's just count, let's just think about what we can actually do without any communication with anybody else.
Okay.
And then what we basically can't.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I'd like to point out to you that you could probably do quite a bit more than you realize, and this is something that people don't necessarily realize. Again, my business is called OMG Machines, which stands for One Man Gang. One of the main ideas behind this is that you can do an awful lot on your own,
right.
Much more than people think, especially in these days with the internet. There's so many great tools out there that help you. They're so empowering. One of my favorite tools is something called, to give you a sense of things, is Camtasia. Yep. Today we're doing this wonderful interview, and we've got 2 lighting kits right there. We've got a cameraman, And this none of this can be like the lighting, for example,
Right.
is nothing to be. You can't just wave your hand at it.
Sure.
Like lighting really matters.
Right.
I was in my game store one time. My game store was my first business, and I was sitting there teaching a little girl how to play Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
And it was the umpteenth time I taught it. I
Yeah.
knew I was good at teaching it. And it just hit me. I was like, gosh, if I could just have a camera. I didn't even think about lighting. The concept of lighting had not even crossed my screen at this point. I wouldn't
Right.
even really find out about lighting until years later.
Yeah.
But I just thought, well, if I had a camera and, whatever,
Yes.
it would happen. And if I could just go from filming it to somehow getting it online, this is years before YouTube was out,
Yes.
then I could teach thousands of people at once.
Right.
And that was a powerful idea.
Yes.
But it wasn't until the rubber did not meet the road on that until 2004 when I found out about a software called Camtasia, which is a screen recording software
Yep.
that you can get a 30-day free trial from techsmith.com. It's a full free trial. You can do it one per computer that you have, so if you really want to stretch things out. And then it's not overly expensive after that. I don't know what it is these days, $100, $200, maybe $300 for an ongoing license. But then all of a sudden, it was like the clouds lifted. Like
Right.
all of a sudden, it wasn't that filming was expensive before that. Filming was, I didn't do it
Yes.
before that.
Right. So you're saying that's what you're saying with entrepreneurs sometimes think that if they're by themselves, they can either do none of it, right? Or everything if they have like 10 film crew. But you're saying you don't have to think that much.
Well, yeah, and here's what I'm getting to. That's a great question. So I'm kind of pointing out that there's a lot you can do yourself in saying that, and I'm going to circle it back around to this Camtasia thing. Now, in terms of what you can't do, what people will tend to do, I did this immediately, was I started hiring employees. Well, I tried to get a partner or two,
Okay.
and that's one thing. But then I started hiring up all these employees. And instead, the reason I was hiring all of these employees is I had one particular partner who did nothing.
Okay. Oh.
And he, like when I say did nothing, he was basically like what would amount to probably like our worst employee. Like he would, he was pretty inconsistent. He'd show up sometimes, sometimes he wouldn't. He'd play like it was a game store, so he'd play a lot of games.
And this was your partner?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and he would just sit there playing, and his rationalization was, as a game store, if I'm not sitting here playing, if people don't have someone to play, they won't come. But then what would happen is one person would, anyways, basically, like, somehow that it just collapses on itself, and it really became a burden. And what would happen was, because I had this bad partner, I would start hiring employees because there wasn't that much I could do.
Right.
I would do everything I could do, but
Sure.
I couldn't cover the things that he couldn't do, and I wanted to grow.
Right.
And so I would hire employees. But the problem was, what I didn't realize was that this guy was really a millstone around my neck,
Yeah.
to where I would lose motivation. And when you have a lousy partner,
Yes.
you're going to lose motivation. Just like, now this happens to be true for when you have a bad employee. One bad employee will drag everybody down.
Poison the well.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult because everyone else sees that employee not performing as hard, and they're getting paid as much. Now, I will tell you this: a shortcut is, even if you're in a situation where you have a partner who's not performing well, or an employee that's not performing well, or even if you're doing consulting and you're working very hard for somebody else, and you feel like they're not holding up their end of the bargain.
Right.
A big shortcut is to still do a fantastic job, and this is why I kind of started with the whole thing about Camtasia.
Okay.
It's really counterintuitive because a lot of what people think is just get out the hatchet and start cutting away.
Right.
So just like, oh well, fire that employee or get rid of that partner or show them what's what or confront them. But
by the way, counterintuitive stuff is what we love to share because it's something that people don't always talk about.
No, and this is overwhelmingly not done. So the thing to do, and this goes for personal relationships as well, the thing to do is to really go hard for keeping up your end of the deal, even if you promise more than you should have.
Okay.
Even if that person around you didn't do what you thought they were going to do, or even if they clearly are outside of the boundaries of your business.
Yes.
And I think that I actually do think in retrospect that working hard inside of that partnership helped me a lot.
Okay.
I think that the places where I would get resentful with him and kind of get passive aggressive and whack him back in some sort of a way, not show up myself for something,
Okay.
or just kind of run off. Probably hurt me. For the most part, I happened to do a pretty good job with things with him, and ultimately I dissolved the partnership and moved on. At some point, what it was what really helped was when I finally got really on point with things.
Okay.
Actually, this is a good point. So with partnerships, I'll talk about like when you're in the middle of a partnership and things are kind of screwed up, and then I'll talk about how to do things right from scratch if possible.
People do ask this question a lot, by the way, on if you have a bad partner,
What to do?
should you
Yeah,
do?
that's kind of. I almost figured that this would be more of a. So here's the whole thing: is stop being the problem. That's the number one thing. Is stop being part of the problem. And I don't mean for a day. I mean, just stop. Like stop doing 90%, because here's what people do. They'll do 90% of what they could have done and say, well, he's only doing 70% of what he could have done. So I'm doing way more than he's doing. So it's perfectly fine that I missed this meeting with this important client, or that I got drunk before such and such and slept in and missed my flight or whatever.
Right.
And I'll tell you, these don't burn get out of jail free cards. You may have a get out of jail free card with a partner, you may not.
Yep.
But if you have one, they're precious, and don't blow them.
Just build them up.
Yeah, just build them up, and it will happen very, very likely at some point that you'll spaz off. You'll do something. You'll have a dark day, and you'll really wish you had it, because one good partnership can go so far. Now, all right. So here's a few things about that. The reason why you need to stop being the problem is until you stop being the problem. For all you know, for example, you could actually have a fantastic partner on your hands, but they're thinking the same thing that you're thinking. So you guys are both playing basically relationship chicken.
Okay.
And chicken is the game where, like, let's say two cars are racing towards the edge of a cliff, and you see who stops first, and whoever stops first, is the chicken, and whoever, hopefully you don't careen off the edge of things and so on.
That's very morbid.
It is, but it is possible that you have a partner, and I've had something like this happen where I was playing like relationship chicken with a potentially very good partner who really did turn out to be a great partner.
Okay.
And I just stopped being part of the problem, and It turned out that, this is somebody who I'm still having a really, really great partnership and business with today.
Okay.
So that's one reason to do it. Another reason to do it is, well, let's actually examine what I just said. Actually, it all winds up being the same reason. When you stop being the problem, it will reveal itself whether this person really isn't performing.
Yep.
It'll
Right.
reveal itself. Also, if you're just running around doing 90% of what you could be doing, you're instructing your mind to do 90% of what you can do.
Right.
And who knows, by the way, what 90% is? I mean, that's all kind of a bunch of BS.
Right.
I mean, you got to, until you really go after what you can fully do for yourself, you're not going to figure out what you can fully do for yourself.
Right. It's kind of like a split test, or one of those tests where they do a placebo effect. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing your best, right, you can't tell if you're not doing your best, if that's affecting your partner, or if you're not. So you have to stay the constant, right?
Right.
So if you're always doing the best, then this person will show themselves, basically.
Right, exactly. And again, you'll also show yourself. Like,
right.
It overwhelmingly matters what you're instructing your mind to do.
Yep.
When you're missing meetings, you're instructing your mind that it's okay to miss meetings,
sure.
Which means that time is meaningless, integrity is meaningless, and it really it's really quite a ruinous thing. Yep. So let me give you one kind of final aspect on things, sure. To just give you another angle, which is this. So if we take things from a totally different angle and say, well, how do we start a new partnership?
Okay.
Here's what people tend to want to do. They tend to meet somebody and they get kind of caught up and overwhelmed and so excited with that person.
Okay.
And they want to just do everything with them.
Okay.
And they want to leap in with both feet and get married on the first date and stuff like that. And it's really natural thing. The problem is that there's some people that are really good with giving that
right.
experience, and then you can wind up married to somebody that you wish you hadn't.
Right.
There's also the fact that a lot of people who are going to be great to be married to
yes.
are not going to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And now there may be some people out there where you could get married with them right away. So there's basically three kinds of people. There's the kind of person that will look great right away, that you can get really deep in business with, and then find out that you really effed up,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Then there's the kind of person who you really could go deep in business with, but they're not going to go all the way with you on the first date. Okay. And then theoretically, there could be someone who'll go all the way with you on the first date who is a great business partner.
Yes.
The whole thing is, if you narrow your opportunities down to just the kind of person who will go all the way with you on the first date, then you're cutting out the people who really could have been a great business partner, who want to go to
play hard to get.
It's not even playing hard to get. They just want to see how things develop.
Yes.
So I'll give you another angle on this. If something's going to work on a big scale, it will work on a small scale.
Right.
So if a big deal is going to work, then a small deal will work.
Sure. Yes.
And now that's not to say that you can't give something a bit of latitude.
Sure.
The first time that you and I did business, that our teams did business, we put together a bit of a game plan.
Yes.
Where and I'll give you a little secret here. I baked in a little bit something at the beginning of things. But we had a little bit of a perspective of, we're going to try this project for, let's say, a couple weeks, and here's the parameters of it.
Yeah.
Now, the way it ended was way better than it began.
Right.
Now, I baked in some stuff at the beginning I don't want to say artificially because it was all real.
Sure.
But that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Right.
If I had known you well.
Yeah.
And if I already known, because people, even in a limited experiment, they'll just get cold feet and jump out of the water.
Yeah.
So you can, sometimes at the beginning of a relationship, what you can do is you can say, like, well, we're going to try something together for 2 months.
Sure.
Right. And the project will be limited to A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do 1, 2, 3. You do X, Y, Z. That's a lot of, moving parts there, but whatever. But when you do that, the big shortcut is really to kick butt at the beginning, and then if you can possibly help it, don't let up.
Right.
Because if you do a good job at the beginning, you're going to kind of goose things and get things started really well.
Right.
But the thing is, now someone else can say, well, then you can let up. Well, the problem is that the value of a high performing partner is so high.
Right.
It's just so high that if you're gonna back off, just cut it off.
Right. Sure.
Like, don't ever let up your gas on the pedal. So either don't ever start sending signals to people that you're not very serious anymore, that things aren't very important anymore. I'll try to do my business different ways.
Yeah.
I'll try to provide the value that I bring to the table. And one of the things I brought up was Camtasia. What Camtasia allowed me to do was all of a sudden have, in many ways, the power of the film set and the lighting kits and all that kind of stuff, but all on my computer, where I could teach this game, and I could teach it very, very well, very quickly, and at a very low cost. And I got very good at doing that.
Yeah.
There was something that I could do that I got very good at doing, and ultimately I got very good at getting ideas across when it comes to, in that case it was business, and then in that case it was games, and then we went into a bit of some stuff about business, then we went into relationship advice, and then we went back into business. So I just got very good at things. So for example, with video and email are two things that I'm very good at, and there are things that I will do where I'll try to get even better at them.
Yep.
And from the outside looking in, it might look like I'm goofing off even more than normal. But I always have like a strong beacon towards doing, like, really performing for my partners. And if it ever comes to a point where I can't do that, I won't slow down, I'll quit.
Okay.
And that's, I think it's better to kind of keep that in mind, because instead what we wind up doing is we wind up pulling up the tree by the roots, or the plant by the roots, to figure out if it's growing.
Right.
And this is a really, really typical thing to do in relationships, and it screws things up. So it's so much more powerful to, in the beginning of a relationship, or if you're trying to retrench a struggling relationship, is to pick a span of time when you're going to do stuff. Try to figure out what you're going to do, and then do it. Of course, you want to know that your partner is doing a good job, and you hope that they will. But you'd be shocked. I mean, so often when you think that somebody isn't doing a good job, they're busting their ass for you, and, and they might be overcoming something. I'll give one final thing that I'll say. This really classic thing. But really powerful to keep in mind. So there's I don't know if this is an urban myth or something that really happened, but anyways, a guy gets on a subway.
Okay.
And at the next stop, another guy gets on, and he's got a few kids with him, like 4 kids with him, whatever. And these kids that come on with the second guy are acting like, little zoo animals. They're going crazy. They're screaming, running up and down the subway thing. They're swinging off the bars. They're yelling. And the first guy who got on the subway he's starting to get really ticked off. He gets more and more pissed off. And he's just getting ready to just unload on this first guy who's just such a bad dad or whatever. And kind of like the split second before he just lets loose and tells this guy what a jerk he is.
Yes.
The guy looks up and says, "Their mom died this morning. I just don't think that it's really hit them yet."
Oh my god.
Yeah, you didn't know that was coming, did you?
No, did not.
So keep that in mind, because sometimes
you just don't know.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. And if you give things time, they very often reveal themselves. If you do a good job with a small thing, it really leads to better things. At least it gives you the opportunity. Every partner that you have at least gives you the opportunity to practice being a good partner.
Yes.
And that's something of great value.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.